Hello everyone, this is André from SWL. Welcome to episode 24 of my series, the SWL DXing News Report. This episode was recorded on April the 19th, 2025, and is coming to you from a cool Johannesburg where autumn has arrived. In this podcast, I cover radio-related news, frequency changes, new stations, closures, and anything else that might interest DXers. You'll find an RSS feed link in the video description, including for Spotify listeners. It is a packed episode this month. I've got loads of frequency news about the 100th anniversary of ham radio in South Africa, the latest on USAGM and VOA, and how Russia's Sputnik radio is moving in to fill the gap. Plus, I have reception reports from Goranko in Serbia and Robert in Tennessee. May 2025 marks the centenary of the South African Radio League, the SARL, which was founded in 1925. As part of the celebrations, SARL is looking to expand its impact on amateur radio across sub-Saharan Africa. It is a bit of a sad story, said SARL President Nico van Rensburg in an interview with Tech Central. You've got amateur radio activity mainly in Namibia and South Africa, but not much elsewhere. There is a bit more traction in Mozambique and Tanzania, while northern countries like Egypt and Nigeria have stronger national bodies and activity. But Central Africa remains a blank spot for amateur radio development. SARL was created to represent radio amateurs and to advocate for spectrum allocations. Today, there is an organization called ICASA, the Independent Communication Authority of South Africa, that manages spectrum allocation in the country, with SARL overseeing the necessary licensing exams and providing training. In South Africa, ham radio plays a crucial role in disaster response. During the 2022 floods in KwaZulu-Natal, hams set up emergency stations to help displaced residents, especially the elderly, so that they could reconnect with their family. According to Brian Jacobs of HamNet, the SARL's emergency communications wing, hams often act as the first line of response, helping relief teams understand conditions on the ground. To mark its centenary, SARL launched a year-long Centenary Marathon QSO party, that is a contact party, starting the 1st of January 2025 and running until the end of the year, 31 December 2025. Hams and shortwave listeners can participate by working South African stations and submitting reception reports. The special event call sign ZS100 SARL will be active alongside regular calls ZS6 SRL and ZS9HQ. Full details and rules to participate are on the SARL website, which is linked in the description of this podcast. The SARL centenary coincides with the 100th anniversary of the International Amateur Radio Union, the IARU, which was founded on the 17th of April 1925 in Paris, France, which today includes 172 member countries. Here is when some amateur radio leagues were founded in some other countries. In Australia, the Wireless Institute of Australia was founded in 1910 already. In New Zealand, the New Zealand Association of Radio Transmitters was founded in 1926. The Chinese Radio Sports Association was founded in 1931. The Radio Club Argentino in Argentina was founded in 1921. The Liga de Amadores Brasileiros de Radio Emissão in Brazil was founded in 1931. The Federación Mexicana de Radio Experimentadores in Mexico was founded in 1932. In Colombia, the Liga Colombiana de Radio Aficionadas was founded in 1933. And in Algeria, Amateur Radio Algérienne was founded in 1963. There is still a lot of uncertainty surrounding the future of VOA and USAGM. Following President Donald Trump's executive order to reduce services to the legal minimum, we've seen widespread cuts. The full scope of what will remain is unclear, but one thing is certain. Most VOA and USAGM shortwave and medium wave services have vanished. Services to Africa, including VOA Studio 7 in English and Shona, are gone. This was beamed at Zimbabwe. This includes frequencies like 909 kHz on medium wave and 4930 kHz on shortwave. Services to Africa in other languages such as French, Oromo, Hausa, and others are also all gone. Some Radio Free Asia broadcasts do seem to be continuing. These include the Korean service on 9900 kHz from Pochung in Taiwan between 1200 and 1400 UTC. Also the Uyghur service on 11850 kHz between 1500 and 1600 UTC and on 9560 kHz between 1600 and 1700 UTC. The Khmer or Cambodian service on 11885 kHz between 1230 and 1300 UTC also seems to be on air. And Burmese on 15245 kHz between 030 and 0130 UTC and 02 and 03 UTC still appears to be on air. I've personally heard the Korean service this April, but I can't yet confirm the others. Some USAGM stations have moved online. Radio Liberty, formerly on 1386 kHz via Lithuania, will be online or satellite only from the end of April. But it will still be heard via WRMI on 15770 kHz from Monday to Saturday between 0400 and 0500 UTC. Radio Farda to Iran also appears to be available online at the moment. I picked it up myself on the Chuyong LC90 internet radio. Radio y Televisión Martí to Cuba appears to have survived the cuts for now. After pressure from Cuban-American lawmakers, the service resumed broadcasts on the 26th of March, with staff returning to work at its facility in Florida. For now, it seems as if only medium-wave broadcasts have resumed for Radio Martí, but insiders say the shortwave transmitter at Greenville, North Carolina, will return to service for shortwave services to Cuba. We will have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Russia's Sputnik Radio has stepped in where VOA and others have exited. Sputnik Radio has opened its newest relay just last month in Zambia, where Sun FM now airs Sputnik Radio. This can be heard in Ndola on 88.5 MHz, in Lusaka on 95.3 MHz, in Kabwe on 95.1 MHz, and in Livingston on 91.7 MHz. In February, Botswana's Gabs FM also began relaying Sputnik Radio. It's heard nationwide, in Gaborone on 96.2 FM, in Francistown on 96.8 FM, in Palapye on 94.7 FM, in Mahalapye on 93.4 FM, in Lubatse on 94.1 FM, in Selebipikwe and Maun on 91 FM, and in Serowe on 96.1 FM megahertz. All of these are, of course, megahertz. Sputnik Radio is now on FM in Botswana, Zambia, Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon, Mali, Ethiopia, and Guinea. And a new editorial center for Sputnik Radio opened this April in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with more editorial centers planned for South Africa and Tanzania. Recent Sputnik Radio launches include in December 2024 in Nigeria via S Radio in Abuja on 105.9 MHz and in Kano on 104.1 MHz. In October 2024 in Guinea via Galaxy FM on 94.5 MHz. In May 2024 in Nigeria on Calabar Radio 105.5 MHz. Radio Slovakia International confirmed the demolition of its historic Rimavská Sobota shortwave medium wave site by July this year. Built in 1956, the site once broadcast to the Americas, Europe, and Asia. The 12-mast setup included powerful directional antennas, but it's now seen as financially unsustainable and as a safety hazard. The site will be demolished from now until the end of July, and then it will be cleaned up until October. Earlier this year, Austria's iconic 320-ton Moosbrunn curtain antenna was also demolished. This site in Austria had been active since 1983 and transmitted several AWR services until just weeks before the demolition. The antenna was demolished despite petitions to save this part of Austria's radio heritage. Now on to some frequency news, a little bit lighter because there is some good news. From Russia, we have news that Vesti FM was heard testing on 7465 kHz earlier this April. This was part of tests by the Far Eastern branch of RTRS, the Russian federal broadcaster. These signals came from Grigoriopol in Transnistria, which is a breakaway part of Moldova under Russian influence. Radio Voz Missionaria from Brazil is back on 5940 kHz after its transmitter caught fire in January. The station also broadcasts on 9665 kHz and 11750 kHz from Camboriú in southern Brazil. This means Voz Missionaria is now back on all three its shortwave frequencies. As I reported before, the 9665 kHz signal also went down for some time after flood damage earlier this year, but this signal returned a couple of months ago already. And news from Luxembourg. Shortwave has returned to Luxembourg. Radio Onda was granted a 10-year license to operate from Junglingster in Luxembourg. This will be on 6140 kHz, a 1 kilowatt transmitter, and 9530, 15190, and 25850 kHz. These are 100 watt transmitters only. Radio Onda serves Brazil's expat community in Belgium and can also be heard on DAB+ in Brussels. I have two reception reports today, from Goranko in Serbia and from Robert in Tennessee. First, from Goranko. On medium wave, he heard on the 27th of March Radio Kosmash on 1690 kHz at 12:30 UTC 555. And then he heard several stations on shortwave. On the 30th of March, Radio Romania International in Serbian 5910 kHz at 17:30 UTC 555. On the 5th of April, Akashvani from India in English 9620 kHz at 18:30 UTC 444. On the 7th of April, CRI in Russian on 15665 kHz at 420 UTC 555. Also the Voice of Turkey in Turkish on 13635 kHz at 855 UTC 555. CRI Romanian on 17620 kHz at 900 UTC 555. CRI in English on 13685 and 15590 kHz at 1445 UTC 555. Then on the 10th of April, Radio Vatican in Armenian on 11815 kHz at 1600 UTC 555. On the 11th of April, Radio Exterior de España 17755 kHz at 1505 UTC 555. On the 12th of April, Radio France International on 15300 kHz at 1830 UTC 555. On the 14th of April, Radio República in Spanish on 9490 kHz at 0150 UTC 444. On the 17th of April, Radio Vatican in a Slavic language which he could not identify 9710 kHz at 850 UTC 555. Then on the 18th of April, he had another number of stations. Radio France International on 11700 kHz at 0445 UTC 555. Radio Dengegel on 11545 kHz at 425 UTC 555. And Voice of Turkey on 9770 kHz at 420 UTC 555. Also Radio France International in Swahili on 11790 kHz at 445 UTC 555. The next report is from Robert, who lives near Oakland in Tennessee. Robert mentioned that propagation has been poor lately at his location, but he has still caught some interesting stations. Robert heard on the 31st of March Radio Exterior de España on 17715 kHz in Spanish from Noblejas with a SINPO of 43433. On the 5th of April, Radio Romania International on 11730 kHz in Spanish from Tiganesti, SINPO 3s all around, 33333. Radio Nacional da Amazônia on 11780 kHz in Portuguese from Brasilia with a SINPO of 43333. China Radio International on 11830 kHz in Spanish from Cascais, SINPO of 33433. Radio Romania International in English from Tiganesti on 11620 kHz, SINPO of 33323. China Radio International in English from Cascais on 13640 kHz, SINPO of 33333. Radio Exterior de España on 17715 kHz in Spanish from Noblejas, SINPO of 44444. Then on the 8th of April, NHK World Radio in Japanese from Yamata, SINPO 3s all around. And then Sound of Hope on 13670 kHz in Chinese. This is from Taiwan, SINPO 33333. And WRMI Radio Africa on 17790 kHz in English from Okeechobee, SINPO of 55545. Thank you to both Goranko and Robert for the reports. If you'd like to share your catches, please email me. I will provide the address at the end. So, before we end, a short propagation outlook from the NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center. As we approach the anticipated peak of solar cycle 25, around July 2025, HF propagation conditions are expected to improve, particularly on higher frequencies, that is from 15 to 30 megahertz or 15,000 to 30,000 kilohertz. This is due to increased solar activity enhancing ionospheric ionization. However, this heightened activity does raise the likelihood of solar flares and geomagnetic storms, as we have been experiencing over the past months, and these can cause temporary disruptions in HF communications. But also, they can lead to some interesting catches. This is especially likely at higher latitudes and during daylight hours. Short-term blackouts and signal degradation may occur on some days in the coming weeks. G2 storm levels are expected on the 2nd of May due to recurrent coronal hole high-speed streams, and G1 storm levels are expected on the 17th of April, the 1st of May, the 5th and 6th of May, all of these due to recurrent coronal hole high-speed stream activity. Unsettled to active levels are expected on the 22nd and 23rd of April, the 3rd and 4th of May, and from the 7th to the 9th of May. All of these again due to recurrent CHHSS activity. Quiet to unsettled levels are expected for the remaining days in the outlook period over the coming month. You can find links in the description of this video to a website called Ham Radio for Non-Techies with simple HF propagation charts, and also to the Australian Space Weather Prediction Center for HF propagation forecasts. That's it for this episode. Please send me your news and reception reports, including your location, the radio you used, the frequencies you received, and SINPO or SIO codes. You can email me at andre9@duck.com. That is ANDRE, the number 9, @duck.com. This podcast will go out monthly at the end of each month, so you can expect the next episode at the end of May. Until next time, happy listening.
André the man from a land so wide.